To this potentially explosive story, a report about the raid that killed Osama bin Laden. Journalist Seymour Hersh claiming President Obama lied about the role Pakistan played in the takedown so he could take all the credit for the mission himself. He says it all left the intelligence community scrambling to corroborate his story. Well, KT McFarland is a Fox News national security analyst and served as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Reagan administration. And good morning to you. We have reached out to Seymour Hersh. We're awaiting a response as to whether or not he will join us here. His main source on this report, KT, is not named. He has been faulted for that in some of his past reporting. However, he also won a Pulitzer Prize some decades ago. And you know of him from your experience.
Well, I mean, I know
Washington.
his work. I was in the Nixon administration, worked on Henry Kissinger's staff, and Seymour Hersh was one of the most well-known, prominent newsbreaking stories on Vietnam. He was the bane of our existence to a certain extent. But I looked at this. I looked at the story. I've watched his interview. There are a couple things that just don't ring true.
Okay, let me stop you on that, okay? This is what he says, and then we'll tell the viewers some of the things he says, all right, on screen. The White House still maintains that the mission was an all-American affair and that senior generals of Pakistan's Army and Inter-Services Intelligence Agency, ISI, were not told of the raid in advance. This is false, as are many other elements of the Obama administration's account. This is the case he lays out. Bin Laden was taken captive in 2006 on behalf of the Pakistanis. He was held in what is considered the Pakistani West Point, given full and complete protection until a point where the Pakistanis thought American aid was going to dry up, and that's why they did a deal. Go.
Well, several things. One, your point about the anonymous source, the single anonymous source, retired intelligence official. That really flies in the face of a lot of memoirs that we've seen. I mean, of all of the conversations we've had with former secretaries of Defense, Panetta and Gates, who were also former CIA directors, they all endorsed President Obama's story. Secondly, I don't think it sort of doesn't pass the smell test. Why? The Pakistanis, with one hand, were happily taking $2 billion a year, saying we need that to help find Osama bin Laden. On the other hand, they were, as you just said, they were protecting him. They were keeping him safe. Why would they change? Why would they endanger that sort of annuity they were getting? They had it exactly the way they wanted it. They wanted the money from us, and they had to keep bin Laden alive to continue to get the military aid. That military aid wasn't going to dry up. Just the opposite. What's happened now is that we've questioned the military assistance to Pakistan now that bin Laden's no longer there. The third thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is when he says, well, the intelligence community had to scramble. It was going to be a drone raid. They were going to announce it this. Look, politicians always take credit when things go right. You have to assume that if that raid went correctly and Osama bin Laden was killed or captured, the president would take credit. You also have to assume if it didn't go well, the president would have blamed somebody else. That happens. I have no problem and no hesitation in criticizing President Obama's foreign policy. But in this case, I think probably Obama was right.
Wow. Put up the picture from the Situation Room, because we all remember they were all assembled there. They were all there together. You believe that they oversold the story, and that's the fault that you have in the administration's narrative?
Yeah, I think that Bob Gates said, and he's an old friend of mine, he's a straight shooter, when Bob Gates said, well, when we left that White House Situation Room meeting, we all agreed that we were not going to talk about the details of the raid and the kill. And yet the next morning I pick up the paper and everybody's talking about it. That's my complaint.
But
is that they oversold it.
But does that relate in any way to what Hersh is writing about right now?
No.
Okay, what he does write about is that the body was never dumped at sea.
Right.
He alleges that that did not happen. And if that is true, KT, where's the body?
Well, that's the big question. The rationale for dumping it at sea was they were afraid if they buried it, that it would end up becoming a shrine. It would be where radical jihadists would look at as the New Jerusalem. So they had to get rid of the body. They had to do it under terms of the Muslim religion, which means they had to dispose of it within 3 days. And so the only place they really could put it was at sea. So again, none of that makes sense. And this is like, is Elvis still alive? Is Obama really dead? It, to me, is a lot of conspiracy
That's a great point.
theories.
Remember the doctor who did the DNA testing, and apparently that's how he confirmed that they were descendants of bin Laden inside that home?
Yes.
Remember that story?
Yeah.
Now we're told that doctor was put in jail. We'll wait to see what his fate is. The White House apparently has not denied this yet. It's still early, but perhaps we will wait for word today. We asked for Rob O'Neill to come on today with us, and he apparently is traveling, so we hope to get him on record as well. But Hersh has a story out here, and now we wait to see how others react to it? I'll give you the last word.
Well, I think President Obama deserves credit for what he did. It was a tough call. If it had not gone well, we would have all been blaming, myself included, would have been blaming President Obama for a failed raid. But in fact, he did do a tough call, and it succeeded, and it put to bed and to rest a lot of tortured souls.
Katie, thank you.
Thanks,
and again,
Bill.
we've reached out to Seymour Hersh, and hopefully he takes us up an invitation today. Got a lot of questions for him, too. Katie, thanks.
Thank you.
Martha.